This podcast is supported by Howie's Market. And speaking of support, Howie's Market is here to support the wildfire relief efforts however they can. Howie's Market, as you know by now, is located in the San Gabriel Valley and serves a customer base who has been greatly impacted by the Eaton Canyon fire. We're happy to report that Howie's Market has been safe throughout the fires, but the same cannot be said for large parts of their surrounding communities. Howie's Market, their owners, and their staff feel compelled to help, and if you follow along with their Instagram, you'll see what they're doing and how you might get involved locally or from afar. Their Instagram handle is @Howie's Market, and we encourage you to support the people that support us and support their community in a time of need.
Fellowship listeners, my name is Adam Hawk. Ryan Engle is here, and you will hear from him shortly, but I'm going to speak alone for an extended amount of time. It's Monday, January 13th, and there really is no other place we can start today other than with what's happening just north of us in neighboring Los Angeles County with these devastating wildfires. We will have some regular show and programming later in this episode, but we are compelled to begin with our thoughts on the dire situation in LA. And it goes without saying that we are the farthest thing from journalists, and this podcast certainly is not a news show. So please make sure to lean on other outlets for the latest updates. But from what we've last seen, 24 people are dead and many others are missing as it relates to the LA wildfires, and both those figures are projected to go up in the coming days. These are tragic numbers, and the loss of human life probably won't be fully absorbed until this whole thing is over. But it's not over. What started this past Tuesday morning is still an ongoing, devastating, and dangerous event. The Santa Ana winds that made these fires so widespread and so destructive and so fast-moving and so impossible to fight are forecasted to return this week. And that's the last thing anyone wants to hear right now, especially as the two biggest fires each remain less than 20% contained at the time of recording this show. Because what we have here in Southern California at the moment is an extremely flammable landscape brought on by the driest winter since 1964 and the most extreme winds in the last 10 years. And all it takes to start a fire is a spark from a tow trailer that grinds on the roadway, a spark from a cigarette butt, a spark from an unattentive camper, a spark from debris colliding with a power line, or, very unfortunately, a spark from an arsonist. And if that spark touches any of this baked out and wind-blown vegetation, it can quickly turn into a wall of flames, burning hundreds of acres in a matter of hours. Put simply, it has been and still is a very, very precarious and scary time right now. People are on edge. They're exhausted, they're heartbroken, they're scared. Some folks have been without power for almost a week. Some can't drink the tap water in their city. Some have evacuated and are waiting and hoping to be able to go home soon. Some never got to go home because their house was destroyed. Others went home and are saddled with guilt because their house is one of just a few still standing in a totally decimated neighborhood. People are dead or missing or forever changed. And as we record this right now, it's not over. Now, Nation Golf might be based in Orange County and pretty far south in Orange County, but this company and the team here is very tied to Los Angeles, especially me. I moved from Seattle to Los Angeles in 2010. I met my wife there. I had the majority of my radio career there. My in-laws have lived there their entire lives, and my wife too, until we moved to Orange County. My daughter was born there. I still go there once a week for work, and I celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas in LA. Our flagship sponsor, Howie's Market, is a Los Angeles County-based grocery market. The brewery that we made Swing Lube with was in Boyle Heights near downtown. Our brothers in golf at Tropicana are rooted in the San Gabriel Valley, which was ravaged by the Eaton Canyon fire. And one of our most proper photo shoots ever was at the Lander House in Baldwin Hills. Beyond our business ties to LA are the far more important personal ties. Justin Jung, our creative director, knows 4 people who lost their homes, and I know 4 as well, including someone that I work with in Los Angeles. So many of my team members at the Southern California Golf Association have either been without power or had to evacuate. And as I mentioned, my wife's family is in Alhambra, just a town south of Pasadena, and enduring some of the worst and most dangerous air quality on record. None of what I say is to commandeer the tragedy and make it about us, but rather to help explain why this event feels so close to home beyond the obvious proximity. And look, the most astute listeners of this podcast might be tempted to point out that I myself have said many times on this very show that I don't like Los Angeles. And it's true. I have said that, and I own it. And at the risk of sounding extremely callous at the worst possible time, I'm not going to attempt to rewrite history or issue some ham-fisted apology for saying that. But when I say I don't like Los Angeles, I've always been speaking about the infrastructure and inconvenience of LA. When I say I don't like LA, I'm saying I don't like the traffic, the cost of living, or how every block is more crowded than other entire cities. But guess what? Two things can be true at the same time. I can dislike the inconveniences of LA, and I can absolutely love the people who live there. And I do. I love my in-laws and the Nolans and the Wrightons and the Schwarzes and the Landers and the Smiths, and I'm concerned for my coworkers at the SCGA and our loyal Nation Desert Classic players and customers who live in LA, and our brothers at Tropicana, and all the people I've worked with in Los Angeles radio. I want nothing more in the world right now than for them to be safe and put at ease and for this nightmare situation to be over. Do you know how rare it is for a wall-to-wall breaking news story to have started 6 days ago and still not have stopped? And do you know how unsettling it is that we're all unsure when it's finally going to end? This week has been all-consuming. If you live in the area, all of your correspondence to others has been checking in. All of your social media has been related to the fires. I had a very unusual week of work because so many of my team members were offline, either evacuated or without power, and that's continuing into today and this week. But the most disconcerting part is that no one can start to pick up the pieces when the pieces are still being burned as we speak. I want to echo the widespread sentiments to the firefighters and first responders who are working around the clock in the most brutal conditions ever recorded to protect life and property, all because they were called to do this kind of noble vocation. I know some of you in that line of work are uncomfortable with this label, but you people are heroes. All you need to know about first responders is that when we're running away from danger, they are running towards it. And I don't care that they get paid to do it. At some point, it's about more than money because you can't put a price on bravery and tenacity. You either have it or you don't. And a paycheck doesn't automatically put that in you. And these men and women have it in spades, and I'm so grateful for all of you. Truly, God bless each and every one of you who are saving people and property and doing everything you can to put an end to the situation. Beyond the first responders are the everyday citizens who have already mobilized to help, and I'm so inspired by their spirits. Los Angeles is Spanish for the angels, and I think we've seen a lot of angels in the city of angels this past week. People helping people, donating whatever they can, organizing to distribute food and clothes and baby supplies, making sure pets get to shelters, starting various fundraisers. It has been incredible to see, and I know that we're going to see more as the days, weeks, and months unfold. I will say that I'm disheartened but not surprised that some people have lost the plot in one way or another these past 6 days. Arguing online about who or what is to blame for this is fruitless and tone deaf right now. We have our entire lives to waste it online peddling our personal politics. Can't we just take a breather from that right now? No one who lost their home or their school or their church or their senior center or, God forbid, lost a family member wants or needs to hear any of that right now. That kind of discourse is distasteful, and it's an insult to the real matters at hand right now, which is helping people who really need it. It's a waste of energy, and it exposes the amount of free time you have to actually be pitching in and helping. Trust me, arguing with strangers about which political party failed the most isn't going anywhere. The sewer of the internet will still be around in a few weeks for everyone who wants to aimlessly battle with random people about if this is climate change or not, or whether prisoners should be fighting fires and federal emergencies, or if a secret government of banks is burning cities on purpose so they can rebuild them and sell houses for more money. All of those fights and arguments between strangers will be available later, I promise. So how about we all just read the room and keep the main thing the main thing? People need food and water and shelter and safety, not a conspiracy theory or an internet argument. To the topic of looting, I don't even want to dignify these people with my time or breath. It's one thing to raid a big box store during a riot, which is, of course, deplorable in its own right. But to steal from people who ran for their lives because you know the neighborhood is empty and law enforcement is spread thin, that is a new kind of low I didn't know existed. And frankly, it's so sickening that I don't even want to talk about it. Only to say that I'm so happy that the number of good people in LA so greatly outweigh the number of bad people that it's even more of a reason to not talk about them. One of three things will catch up with these people: God, karma, or the law. And I wouldn't expect a lot of mercy for whoever ends up getting to them. On the topic of good and evil, as I wrap this, I do want to say, and I'll put a disclaimer at the front of this in case I'm about to serve a cup of tea that just isn't your bag. This will be about God, and as a believer in God, I'm compelled to use whatever platform I have to speak about him when I feel called to do so. If you're not interested, all good. I'm not here to preach or judge or convert or make you feel uncomfortable. So no offense taken if you want to hit the 15-second skip button 4 times right here. And before I start, please understand that I only speak for myself, not the company or my partners. I believe in times like these, our faith, if you are a believer, is really put to the test. And the obvious question comes up like it does whenever tragedy occurs. If God was so good, if God was so loving, why did he let this happen? That's a really massive question, and to an extent, a really valid one, and one that you should search in your own heart and in your own faith for answers. But for me, I take comfort in this. We are God's love. We are God's love. In times like these, we get to show and be God's love. We get the opportunity to be his work and his extensions here on earth. We get to lean in and help out. We get to donate our time and our resources. We get to be the love that we all need so badly right now. And I think we would be blind and deaf to say that we aren't seeing it and hearing it right now in LA. It is everywhere. Have you ever noticed that the worst times bring out the best in so many people? That people drop whatever they're doing and file their own problems away to lean in and help others who need it more? To me, that is God's love. God working through his people to remind the world that nothing is more important than love. If these things happened and everyone retreated to their own space and went every man for themselves and descended into chaos and violence, then I would question my faith. But to me, God restores our faith in him by showing us his faith in humanity time and time again without fail. As mentioned before, the angels on the streets of LA right now so greatly outnumber the demons that the demons aren't even worth speaking about. And I love that. And to borrow a phrase from Ryan Engle, I love to see it. Beyond that, I am a firm believer in prayer and that it works. And I understand there is a sentiment that rejects the notion of people offering thoughts and prayers during tragedies. Some people find it empty and disingenuous, and that's fine. Totally fine if you feel that way. But I also hope it's fine that nothing is going to stop me from praying for the residents of LA County and the firefighters and praying for rain. I will pray for those things and tell people I am praying for those things, regardless of how disingenuous it might be perceived. And here's the thing. I do find the sentiment of offering thoughts and prayers to be disingenuous too, if you don't pray. I will say that again. I do find the sentiment of offering thoughts and prayers to be disingenuous too, if you don't pray. How many of us say we are offering thoughts and prayers and don't actually do the praying part? If you offer thoughts and prayers, you better be praying because you said that you would. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, well said. I don't know if I can add anything to that. It's just a tragedy. I feel like in the hardest times, there's so many lessons to be learned, both for yourself, your community, society, what to engage with and or stay away from via social media and your own personal projections there. And I love what you said. If you're looking in the right direction, if you're open to the glass half full, you realize real quick that the angels, no pun intended, always overshadow the demons. It's a major U.S. city, and there's people from all walks of life there. There's people that work at the supermarket, there's waiters, there's gardeners, there's landscapers, there's people, and that city is filled with a lot of people with grit and ambition, and that's why they went there. We've seen it in a million movies. People leave their farms in Ohio to go to LA to make it. It's generations of that. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all part of the same tribe, and whatever you believe in, now's the time to lean into that. If you're able-bodied or financially stable, there's tons of ways to help. Giving is the true gift. If you can give, that's going to be awesome. I will say this, I used to think that I was the macho guy, that this comes to my town, I'm on the roof with the hose, but I was thinking last night, in the moment that seems all well, trying to save the house, but the house is no different than the car, the watch. It's a material thing. And yes, your home is your sanctuary, but your real value and your real treasure is your family, the people close to you, the connections. The house is, like I said, it's just a material thing. Just take your family, get them to safety, let the first responders do their job, and if you lose your home, you lose your home. But if you're going to be 85 at the end of your trail and the family's coming to visit you one by one, no one's going to sit there and judge your character on the house you saved. They're going to look at what kind of man you were to stay around and help raise the youth to be better than you. You can't do that if you lose. And there's no sense in losing your life on a roof from some house that you think is valuable, because the true value is yourself. And you need to be with the family. Putting yourself in harm's way to risk taking yourself out of your family's equation, not smart. And I get it. I used to think that way too, but I've realized now when tragedy happens, there's so many lessons to learn, and you're just like, I couldn't imagine dying to save my house and then leaving my family without me. I'd rather live in a shack somewhere with them and get out in time. Very tragic to lose your home, but the people are way more important than that. I do want to say one thing about what you said, and I agree with it about 90%. And I think arguing online, losing the plot, that's the poison in our social media society now. And there's definitely way more instances of where that is out of character, uncalled for, inappropriate, and negative. But when it comes to criticizing leadership, I think that is what is ingrained in the fabric of this country. And I think that if leaders have caused harm because of their negligence and incompetence, I think it's our duty to criticize them or potentially remove them to get someone who knows what the fuck they're doing in charge to save lives and make the right calls, because there's a laundry list, and I'm not going to get political with it. I'm not interested in going down the list, but there is decades of mismanagement in California in general, but specifically in Los Angeles. Santa Ana winds are nothing new. All that brush in there, think about it this way, guys. None of that is native. That was all brought here. You ever been to Baja, California? And you look at the native areas, cliffside, next to the water. There's nothing there. Little tiny native bushes, some succulents. We live in a coastal desert. All of that vegetation in those canyons, everything, those were brought here. Eucalyptus trees, those aren't native. My point is this. If we're going to bring them here and we're going to plant all that stuff, ficus trees and all this crap through the city everywhere, you got to do landscaping. You're going to plant it, you got to trim it, you got to take care of it. You don't just leave it there. So yeah, All this shit's overgrown, but it's stuff that we brought here. That's our bad. It's also our leaders' responsibility to tend to that. There needs to be a plan in place to help what we call this wannabe forest we brought down there. Obviously, houses are made of wood. They're going to burn. That's tragic. But when these winds kick up and there's been nothing done to the brush or the hillsides or anything in these canyons leading to the coast, and the wind's blowing that way, and that's where everyone's houses are, do the math. When are we going to learn? It's going to keep happening. Whether some idiot lit a match or not, doesn't matter. Not the point. The point is, we're not taking care of what burns. That's the lesson here. This is a major U.S. city. We're just going to let some wind and a flame take it away? Come on. We're better than that. We're smarter than that. I'm not saying that we're going to end all fires for the future. That's not what I'm saying. But my God, can we do a better job, please, of making it so it's not this easy? It's 2025. Can we please get some smart people in charge? Let's get some good ideas. Let's put some heads together, and let's make it a little more difficult to have these massive tragedies. How about that?
Two things that you said that resonated with me that I want to pick up on. You made a wonderful point that Los Angeles is so much more than the actors, the producers, the elite. And it has that reputation certainly outside of the city, that it is a town full of those people. It is not. Those people are in the vast minority. And I hope people understand what you said when you said it, that this is a town made up of a lot of middle class, everyday people from all walks of life. And if you were to know this city and know what Altadena is like, you're going to find a neighborhood that looks a lot like every other neighborhood in America, and people that look like all the other people in America. And that's not to say that sympathy and empathy should not be extended to the affluent Palisades. We don't know all the stories of the people up there, nor does being well off or privileged mean that tragedy cannot come to your front door, because it did. So I feel for those people as well. Great point by you on the makeup of the city of Los Angeles. And then another thing you said is it's 2025. I forgot that we're in the new year, because this new year has gotten off to such a hard start. There was what happened on New Year's Day in New Orleans with the 15 people killed by the person that drove their truck through a giant crowd, and now these wildfires. It's January 13th. It has been a tough start to the year, which is a stark contrast of the winter break, in which everyone I talked to said that they had the best winter break they could remember, that it was soul rejuvenating, extremely needed. You used the word, I needed this, when it came to the break that you took. I feel the same way about the break that I took. I talked to so many people who felt completely recharged because there was an extended amount of time off. People reconnected with family, and there was just a lot less communication going back and forth about things that didn't matter. And what a dark turn on coming back from that break and starting this year. That said, on a personal note, I'm really feeling tested during a time in which I'm trying to make significant changes in my life. Changes to eliminate stress, to reprioritize everything, to be more patient and less anxious and more present with my family. This mindset is all-encompassing because it should be filtering into every part of my life. And it is, but it's been a test since getting back from the winter break. Both my kids recently had strep. 2 coworkers in my department at the SCGA left, which usually leads to more work coming the way of the people still standing like myself. I'm finalizing a 64-page magazine for the printer. Our 12-year-old family pet went to the vet twice this weekend and could very well be nearing the end of its life. And these wildfires have been emotional and threw a wrench into any sense of normalcy. You and I have a lot going on with Nation, product launches, grip launch, potential party at the end of the month. the West Coast swing coming through town with a few of our friends here that we want to see. And the weighing question of how do you and I conduct external business during a regional tragedy? There's a lot going on and a lot on our plates. But I've never felt more mentally equipped to handle it than I do right now. And it's because I am consciously trying to make this change in my life to not let stress or anxiety come into play when these kinds of things happen. And I have felt stronger than I've ever felt before, despite the circumstances calling for something else besides strength. The Genesis Open, switching gears, but not really, is scheduled to take place February 13th through the 16th, a month from today, at the Riviera Country Club, which is inside the Palisades neighborhood, but not affected by the wildfires, according to all reports. That is good news. It's a historic landmark in its own right, and that would have been a real loss for the greater golf world and for Los Angeles if Riviera burned to the ground. But the question that a lot of people want to know is, will Riviera host the Genesis Open? The PGA Tour sent a memo to its players this weekend saying that it is too early to make a decision. It is? You're 30 days out. The fire is still burning in the Palisades, the hardest hit neighborhood of this entire disaster. And if you've been to the Genesis, you know that every single fan shuttle buses in from the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica. And the shuttle bus spends about 10 minutes driving through the Palisades to get to the golf course. You want everyone on their phones recording and posting a completely burned down neighborhood on their way to a lush green country club for a recreational event? What do I know? Not much. Maybe there's a bus route into the Palisades that doesn't take the fans through a very fresh ground zero where lives and property were lost. But what about the media who is now inside that neighborhood and wants to tell a different, more important story? What about the aerial shots from the Goodyear blimp? What about subjecting the players to all the same questions about if they think it's right to be there less than a month after a fire wiped out the surrounding area? Again, I don't know all the details. Maybe the tour plans to turn this event into the greatest pro sports charitable give back of all time, and that only happens if you play the event at Riviera. But I don't know. The footprint of a tour event with all the grandstands, VIP tents, personnel, tour trucks, TV trucks, food vendors, and tens of thousands of fans coming through just seems way too far-fetched at this point. I think it's a bad look, not just for the tour, but it puts everyone else, players and fans included, in a bad spot. If you go as a fan and post a picture from there, that could be taken the wrong way by a lot of people. What do you think about Riviera potentially hosting the Genesis a month from today, and more importantly, the tour saying to its players it's too early to make a decision as we are just 30 days out from the event and the fire in the Palisades is still burning?
I get where you're coming from. It's hard to have an honest opinion on any of that, not knowing the specifics and the details. What houses, what it looks like that are gone, are they on the route? There's a way to do it, and it isn't what you just said that you're worried about. I could see there's an argument that it shows strength that, hey, we're not going to stop, we're not going to give up. Obviously, if they lean on the charitable aspect, that'd be good. Could be bringing awareness. I'm sure all the PR people are going to be working overtime trying to spin it in a good way, and that's not all that bad all the time. Give us something to feel good about or get off the topic. Who knows? It's hard to say. I mean, maybe they're being honest. Maybe it is too early to call and they know more than we do, and who knows? I'm kind of with you. Right now, it seems like, that'd be kind of weird to have a golf tournament there right now, but, you know, maybe in 30 days it'll be all right. Maybe the route there is okay. I don't know. I'm not going to have any stance on anything unless I really, really know what I'm talking about.
That's fair, and I said something similar when I was laying it out, that I don't know all the details. Mm-hmm. Who am I?
Totally.
We'll see what they do. I love the Genesis. I've been each of the last 8 years. You and I have been together the last 2. It's my favorite golf course and favorite gallery walk in pro golf. But I can tell you this. Personally, I am not going up into the Palisades for a good time right now or a month from now. I'm staying away. showing my respect for the residents by not coming to their neighborhood until they want people back in there. And to me, that's their decision, not the tour's. And the fact that the tour thinks it's too soon to figure that out, in my opinion, just me, feels like another lapse in PGA Tour judgment, of which there has been plenty the last few years. Again, just my opinion. What are your first thoughts? And apologies if this sounds tone deaf given the tenor and subject matter of the show today, but we promised some first thoughts on the TGL. Ryan, what are your first thoughts on the TGL that debuted last Tuesday?
Let me start with the positives.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually thought it was cool that they have like a real square of turf. Better than a mat, so I thought that was cool. But then the more you watch it, you're like, ugh, kind of silly too. The rotating green thing was impressive, but then I'm like, so does every hole have the same 3 bunkers just on a different dial of the sun? So that was kind of weird. It's kind of impressive how the undulation changes. That seemed like some wizardry, so that was kind of cool. I think that's about it. Everything else pretty much sucked.
Okay.
Just way overproduced. You know those lights when like a car dealership's having a sale? It's like the bat light. They had 400 fucking bat lights in this place going ape shit crazy. I mean, if you were a high anxiety person, maybe on drugs, you could have had a heart attack in that place. There were more stoner lights at the TGL's grand opening than a Revolution concert. It was like, how do we mask this product and just make people trip out on the lights? This is how we do it. I thought that was way overproduced, way silly. And at the end of the day, these guys hit the ball, it flies for like 1 second, and you could just see on their faces, they're just like, okay, I'm trusting this computer, and the ball's going there. They just looked like they didn't know what was going on. They're trying to act funny and cool, and Ricky like throws the flag in front of the putt. If we're being honest, if you have to build that much shit with wizardry, and you have to have that many lights, and you have to have these pros trying to act cool on the greens, let's just call it what it is. This thing is class 1, grade A, try hard. It is so try hard that for me personally, it's tiring. I say this all the time. Whether you're a jock, a purist, a traditionalist, an OG, a new guy, a COVID golfer, if you love golf, everyone can agree when April comes around and you hear the music and you see the sights and the sounds and Jim Nance fucking sitting there in Butler Cabin, you are fucking excited. Augusta gets it right every time. The blueprint is there. We don't need American Gladiator lights and fake fights and guys indoor wearing hats and hooded sweatshirts that they'll never use the hood on. This is so try hard. And I feel bad for him because if it does fail, are you guys going to just try harder with the next thing? Where's the end? Because if this isn't the end, I don't know if I want to see what's next. If you need all of that to like golf, you don't like golf. Plain and simple. Because that's not golf. And if that's what we need to inspire this next generation of golfers to hang around, you think they're going to want to play by the etiquette and get paired up with a random and play a 5-hour round, go play by the rules, and fall in love with that pursuit of sucking and trying to get better and then finally having some financial freedom and be the next generation of people that keep these country clubs alive? If that's what you think is going to be the end result of this, you're kidding yourself. All you're doing is inspiring more low attention span wannabe jocks who would rather be eating Buffalo Wild Wings on Sunday than playing a nice club and having a little Nassau with his buddies. What's sad is that in watching it, I realized that these people who put this together are smart. They've done their homework. They know their audience. And I think there, unfortunately, is an audience that wants to digest this thing. So although I think they have failed, I think they are also borderline succeeding because like we always say on this podcast, two things can be right at the same time. And I think it'll stay around for a while. But if you're going to make the argument to me that this has as much staying power as Augusta National, I think you're wrong. But time will tell. I don't know if I can watch another one. I think I might watch the next one just because Tiger's in it. They were smart. Again, these people are smart. They knew they were going to get numbers for the first one, so they threw out some guys that didn't matter because they're going to get the numbers anyway. And the only way to get people to get those numbers to watch the second one is to put the big dog in charge. And they're going to get numbers again. The real test, episode 3. But at the end of the day, you got pro golfers hitting off fucking real grass on a fake platform into a net and watching a CPU unit tell you where it fucking went. It's just silly. And if you can't see it that that's silly, are you really a golfer? Or are you just some sports fan?
I think it was a bad night for a debut because the social media machine that the TGL set up to carry the weight of the promotion of their first event had to rightfully yield to what was happening in LA on that same night. The same night that the TGL debuted, after waiting an extra year because of a roof collapse, there were unprecedented fires in LA. I watched none of it live. I saw a few highlights. It looked way better than I thought it would, but I don't think it's sustainable because there's a honeymoon stage to all of these things. There's this anticipation, this buildup, then the reveal, then the initial intrigue, and then the reality of we all have way too much going on in our lives to make room for another thing to follow, especially one that happens to live at a specific time. This is the on-demand generation. We watch our shows when and how we want. We don't sit down in front of a TV to watch a cable network at a set time. Unless it's what? The Super Bowl? A presidential debate? The Oscars? The TGL is about 15 rungs beneath all of those things. And it's going to find that out real quick. Because if I were to ask anyone anywhere, when is the next TGL match and who's playing, no one knows. And even if they do, my next question would be, are you going to watch? The amount of people who get the first question right and say yes to the second question is a finite amount of people. And the vast majority of those people are media or paid influencers. And that number is only going to get smaller each week. So how do they reverse that inevitable trend and actually grow the thing? Hate to say it. Bring in the YouTube golf influencers and make teams from them. Watching a pro golfer play fake golf is going to wear off really fast if it hasn't already. Watching a fake golfer play fake golf, you can put that on demand on YouTube and feed it to the millions of subscribers these people already have. And now you have something that people will watch. Not me. I'm not watching either way. But the answer to this fake golf league is fake golfers with big audiences. I want to see Tiger Woods hit a draw around number 13 at Augusta, not hit a draw into a screen at the SoFi TGL Community College inflatable dome.
I can't wait to see in the future, like if we could fast forward to like the section at the World Golf Hall of Fame. Here's the TGL section. Look at how incredible this is. You know, here's a recap of Tiger's first victory at the SoFi Center under the lights. Be real. It's okay to say you don't like something. It's okay. Okay.
I have a question for you. What do Daniel Berger, Nick Watney, and Sepp Straka have in common?
They have tour cards.
They do. They have tour cards, which means they are
tour players.
Correct. These tour players played Torrey Pines last year at the Farmers Insurance Open, and each of these 3 tour players played Torrey Pines South. They played the back 9 of Torrey Pines South. And all of those players last year in 2024 recorded a higher score on the back nine at Torrey Pines South than yours truly. That is correct, folks.
Were you playing the tips?
I was playing the whites.
Yeah. So they didn't shoot higher than you.
They did.
They did not.
They did.
No, they did not.
They did.
No.
12 handicapper from the whites shoots a 39 in the back nine at Torrey Pines South this past Thursday. I'm going to say that I played the back nine better than Daniel Berger, Nick Watney, and Sepp Straka did last year.
Disagree. You did not play better. Did you have a better score? Yes. You did not play better because you played from an easier location. You played a different 9 holes than they did. And you hate to hear it.
Folks, on Thursday, I went down to Torrey Pines, felt real odd about it, given what was happening in L.A., but I went down to Torrey Pines for a media preview day of the Farmers Insurance Open. Second year in a row, I've been lucky enough to get that invite. I brought my good friend who crossed the U.S.-Mexico border to join me, Mr. Jorge Hill, or as I call him, the Equalizer.
Or as I call him, Bocce Ball Left.
Or as I call him, George.
Jorge.
Had a great time with Jorge Hill out there. Played with a couple of guys from KABC. We did have a good time. We played well, we being me. Jorge played well, too. A lot better than he did at Indian Wells Country Club during our photo shoot.
Really?
He did. He played well. It was a fun time. The question I have for the group of listeners, that is, considering we have so many of them here in Southern California, Torrey Pines is held in extremely high regard, both the North Course and the South Course. It has hosted 2 United States Open Championships, and it hosts the Farmers Insurance every year. Is Torrey Pines overrated?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I would agree.
It's cool. By saying it's overrated doesn't mean that it's not a great golf course or not in the conversation of the better golf courses in all of California. But there's a lot of golf courses that are overrated.
Right.
And they're just one of them. And that's okay. You know, do they deserve a PGA Tour stop? I think they do. And I think they do a good job with it. But camping out in your car, 5 a.m. every day just to play that place and lose your ball in 6 inches of Kikuya for just a few holes that are on the water. I don't know, man. Look, I'm just one man, right? And I haven't played all of them, but I've played some golf courses. And just speaking for me, if I wanted to entertain 3 of my best friends and bring them to a golf course that would be the vessel for the best time and the best day, I can tell you with certainty Torrey Pines is way down that list.
Sure.
That is not near the top, and that's okay. Do they have a killer location? Is that area just beautiful on those cliffs? Of course it is. Insane. If someone was like, you want to live right here? I'm going to hook you up and you can play here whenever you want. Yep, I'll take that. No doubt. Am I going to go sleep in my car and pay $400 fucking dollars to play that place? No thanks. Coastal Southern California, it's hard to have good grass. It's true. No one talks about it. It's hard. It's hard to have good grass. It's hard to have good greens. It's not conducive for top shelf golf. Whereas you got blue-collar country clubs in the Coachella Valley that just sprinkle some rye overseed down and turn the sprinklers on, and all of a sudden it's world-class. It is what it is. What are your thoughts, Hawk? Do you think Torrey Pines is overrated?
I do, and I've played there 4 times now, twice on the north, twice on the south. I like the north better. I think I might be in the minority because it sounds blasphemous to say that out loud. I agree with everything that you just said. 1, to call something overrated is to not call it bad. It's just to say that it enjoys a higher status than it deserves. I will also say that I'm happy that the San Diego area has a PGA Tour stop. I think that is very cool.
Good point.
And I will say that if you zoom out on the layout of the South Course, off the top of my head, I could be wrong, and I fully admit that, but I believe 17 of the 18 holes are dead straight. There's one dogleg there, and it's a par 5 on the front. That's a sweeping dogleg to the right, but that layout, for lack of a better term, is pretty repetitive and pretty boring. And that golf course is extremely difficult to play if you are not in the fairway because that rough is so grown up. And when you go to find your ball, you think you found it, but what you have found is another ball cut in half by the lawnmower that ran it over the morning of because someone else couldn't find their ball.
Who designed that course? Ray Charles? I'm angry at that take. F you guys. Take a lap, pal. Go sleep in your car. Don't tap on my window. I'm sleeping. I love Torrey Pines.
Speaking of parking your car at Torrey Pines,
shit.
Fun trivia fact about Torrey Pines. Scott Peterson was caught and arrested for the murder of his pregnant wife, Lacey Peterson, at Torrey Pines as he was fleeing from Central California down to Mexico.
Did you watch that doc?
I did.
And like all the footage and the phone records of him like there at that golf course, like that guy was so gross, dude. Just rich, freaking bratty, mullet wearing, just kook.
Yeah, and you want to talk about being addicted to golf? How about stopping off on your escape to Mexico to try to get a quick 9 in at Torrey? I was planning on reading some YouTube comments today, but we spent most of our time preparing for the top of the show. I will read a text message. The text reads, and I got this last night, nearly fell off the treadmill listening to episode 118, which was our last episode. Love the talk about burning Christmas trees and many other things. Love Ryan saying, I'm only one man. But Ryan dunking on a 10-foot rim is so far the biggest lie of 2025. Do you know who sent me that text?
Who?
My dad.
Yeah, well, he doesn't know me that well, does he?
He does.
Well, he doesn't know me fully.
Doesn't know your athletic prowess.
He didn't know that I used to be in shape and a spry young man. Just because you have a vertical leap of horizontal, John, doesn't mean that I can't jump. Come on, John. I'm only one man.
Ladies and gentlemen, it feels good to laugh after these past 6 days. We do appreciate having the platform to talk about serious issues when they come up. We will never shy away from it. This podcast is more than just a golf podcast. It is a place for us to share our thoughts on the things happening around us and to us. Thank you for listening to what we had to say off the top. And thank you for allowing us the space to have a few laughs at the expense of the TGL, Torrey Pines, and
your dad.
My dad at the end. That will do it for us. We hope that all of our friends and family in the LA area remain safe. We're thinking about you. We are praying for you. And we will talk to you next Monday.